There we go. Hello, everyone. Welcome. Thank you so much for joining us here today. I'm Ken Weitzman. I'm a faculty member here at Stony Brook University and one of the playwrights for Stony Brook Science on Stage. I'm very excited about the group we have. We have some terrific theater artists and wonderful scientists who partnered with them. And I'm very excited to bring that to you today. When I brought the idea of commissioning playwrights to write specifically about science and scientists here at Stony Brook, when I brought the idea to Laura Lindenfeld, who's the executive director of the Alan Alda Center for Communicating Science here at Stony Brook, in classic improv and Alda Center fashion, Laura said, yes, and. She said, yes, let's do it. And I'm going to put it right into a grant to the Kavli Foundation, who then funded it. So I want to thank the Kavli Foundation, and I want to thank Laura, and also introduce her so she can welcome you herself. So I'm pleased to introduce Laura Lindenfeld, who's the executive director of the Alda Center and the dean of the School of Journalism. Hey, Laura.
Hi, everyone. Hi, Ken. I am tickled pink about this event, as Ken indicated. Welcome to SBU Science on Stage. Thomas Henry Huxley wrote on the nature of science and literature, and he said, science and literature are not two things, but two sides of one thing. That was in 1907. This project we share with you today represents two sides of that single coin. You'll experience the synergy of science and art through the performance of 3 one-act plays inspired by the lives and careers of scientists right here at Stony Brook University. By exploring science in new ways, in film, on stage, in other art forms, we can make science more accessible and share the wonder of this critically important work. The Alda Center has been going for over 10 years and trained more than 15,000 scientists and a whole bunch of graduate students becoming scientists. We're committed to science communication training, but our mission is so much broader. We seek to share the wonders and joy of science and research with the world. This play project is a new and, I think, inspirational way for us to do that. And Ken, I'm so grateful to you and to everyone else who dug in and made this a reality. Talented playwrights and fascinating researchers come together to tell stories about the importance of science, the challenges of being a scientist, and the vital necessity of science in society today. Following the performance, these 3 one-act plays that you'll hear will have a panel discussion featuring the scientists and playwrights. We invite your questions and look forward to an engaging and exciting conversation. Thank you so much for being here, and special thanks to the Kavli Foundation for supporting this. Let me hand it back to you, Ken.
There we go. I did it again. Forgive me. Such is live digital theater. And speaking of which, what I came on to tell you is, should anything happen technically with internet or power with one of the actors, we do have a couple of understudies. So should that happen and you see another face appear, that is how we're dealing with it. We're not expecting that, but we are prepared for it. The plays will run back to back, just under an hour, and then we'll start our panel discussion immediately thereafter. Again, thanks for being here, and enjoy the plays.
Lee! Hey! How you doing?
Oh, hi, Bri.
You stoked for Sunday? I'm so stoked for Sunday.
Yeah.
I essentially spent every minute of the last 5 days emptying out closets and drawers.
Essentially.
You will not believe the stuff I found. Look, my middle school journal.
Huh?
It's so crazy looking back at what you were like then, you know?
Crazy.
What?
No. It's crazy to look back. Yeah.
Here, look at this. Basketball, 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 baseball.
Huh.
And then winter hockey. You would never have gone out with me if you'd read this first.
Yeah, that might have been predictive.
What?
No, it is crazy to look back, as you say.
Anyway, cleared out all that stuff, and you've got loads of room now. You essentially have your own closet and a whole chest of drawers. God, I can't wait to see you.
Essentially.
Are you analyzing my speech?
No, I can't wait to see you too.
You said you stopped.
I know. I'm sorry.
You said it had no real
Relevance. It doesn't. It's stupid. It's just a terrible habit, and nothing can be determined from that kind of tiny random sampling of language. Nothing. I'm sorry. It's stupid. It's a bad habit, and
it's okay, honey.
it's not. It's neurotic and intrusive, and
You're just anxious about the move. Oh, Lee, it'll be fine. I got the movers those special masks you wanted. We'll keep all the windows open. We can disinfect everything as we put it away. I've been isolating completely. You certainly have. We'll be fine.
Yeah.
You pretty much packed up?
Listen, Bri. I think it's not actually a good idea.
What? No, it's a great idea. This is just cold feet.
Ugh.
It'll be so great. I'm going to wake up every morning and see that little scowl. Look, would it make you feel better to wait until the study comes back? I can do that. 3 more weeks, right?
I didn't even want to do that study. You wanted that study. I didn't even want to do it.
Well, because I know how much statistics relax you.
I said it was a bad idea. I said it's not what my research is for.
Okay, but it'll prove that we're perfect for each other.
It's not Match.com, Brian. It's computational psychology, and it really shouldn't be used in this manner.
Okay.
I think you should modify your expectations about what it'll tell us when it comes back.
Expectations modified.
And,
What?
I have some bad news.
Oh no, what?
Your county,
Yeah?
it's toxic.
What?
Yeah.
What does that mean?
I did an analysis. 2 years of Facebook and Twitter posts originating from the citizens of your county. The usage of the word drama, bored, why, hate, and exhausted are far above the national average and highly indicative of a community under stress. And it has been shown statistically that when your neighbors are angry, you're more apt to die of coronary heart disease. Just hear me out. Of course, it's not the people who are tweeting and posting who are dying. Of course not. It's the older population who aren't on social media to the same extent who are dying. They're the canaries in the coal mine, if you will. But it does indicate that living amongst people who are experiencing those negative social relationships and emotions can kill you. Well, perhaps that's not entirely accurate. It could be conversely true that living amongst people who are dying of heart disease may cause more anger, or that there are underlying factors that lead to both anger and heart disease. But chicken or egg, it's toxic.
I don't know what any of that means, but we've got the park like 2 blocks away and the best Greek food anywhere, essentially. And the schools are awesome. So I thought you loved it here.
I do.
So,
Sorry.
okay, listen, Lee, if you don't want to live here, you don't have to do a whole elaborate study. Just say so. I mean, this house, I get it. It's old and creaky. I get it.
It's not that.
Would you rather I move into your place? It's smaller, but I don't care. I really don't. We could live in a cave together. I'd be happy.
You would. You'd be happy in a cave.
With you, I would.
Oh, God. You're so sweet, Bri.
So I'll move in there. Oh,
What was that? Was that the doorbell? Someone's at your door? No, don't answer it. Bri! Well, at least put a mask on before you open it. Oh my God. Oh my God. What is going on? Brian, are you okay? Brian!
So, should I move in there?
What was that?
Oh, Left Terrace. Best Greek in the country.
You ordered delivery?
I'll eat it later. It's just a salad.
It's not even cooked.
I thought you'd be happy I ordered a salad and no fries.
Who knows if the chef is sick or the delivery guy?
Honey, everyone I know is ordering in but you. They say it's essentially impossible to get it from food. So, would you rather I move in there instead?
No.
Oh shit. Is your county toxic too? Let's cook up some algorithms and find ourselves a happy neighborhood. Or it's not really the neighborhood at all. You just don't want to live together.
Brian, I lied. The report doesn't take 3 weeks. It's instantaneous. I was afraid to do it. But last night I pulled the trigger, as it were.
So what? Am I toxic now?
It's not you, it's me.
I haven't heard that since college.
No, really.
You know, it's all kind of nonsense anyway.
You're the one who wanted me to do the study.
Well, like you said, you can't really tell if we're compatible. It's all kind of bullshit.
It's my life's work.
Sorry. I always kind of thought it was a little bullshitty. I mean, you can't tell anything by looking at social media. Everyone puts on a persona there. Like life is so perfect. So analyzing the words we use.
Of course everyone puts on a persona there. We put on a persona in life. What is our true self? Can a person ever really know another person? Can we ever even really know ourselves? We're born alone, we live alone, we die alone.
Okay, honey.
You can't question the validity of these studies. They have been more predictive than questionnaires at anticipating emotional stability. The hard data is remarkably determinative.
Wow, hard data.
Yes, hard data. Using the linguistics inquiry and word count on 15.4 million Facebook messages, we have predicted flu epidemics before the CDC confirmed them. By weeks, we can tell a person's age within a 5-year margin. We can determine gender up to 93% accuracy.
Gender is fluid, and it's not binary.
Maybe that accounts for the 7% differential.
Lee, what's really going on here? Are you going to tell me that after 4 years together, you run some algorithm and now you don't love me?
I do love you. You're wonderful. On a 5-factor model, classifying personality traits by extroversion, agreeableness, conscientiousness, neuroticism, and openness, you are abnormal. You're so wonderful. Abnormally agreeable and outgoing and active and optimistic and artistic and talkative and generous and kind and conscientious and open and extroverted and healthy and cute. You're so cute.
Honey?
It's me. I'm a neurotic, depressive, closed, anxious, touchy, disagreeable, depressive, introverted mess.
You're wonderful.
I'm sorry, but the data doesn't support that assertion.
The data. I've liked every one of your Facebook posts.
In the past 2 years, I have used sick of 37 times. You never used it once.
But you had the flu both years, remember?
Sick of, Brian, sick of. Do you know how abnormally neurotic that makes me? I used any more 12 times, which indicates depression. Probably, trying, apparently, don't, all above the national average. I use I more than you do.
That's just silly.
Science. Ugh, I can't talk about it anymore. Oh my God, I just said anymore again. And I said ugh. It's highly indicative.
You're making yourself crazy.
I am crazy, which is not a medical term, and it's stigmatizing, and isn't really a word we should be using in normal parlance anymore. And you do say it a lot, which always gives me hope that maybe we're somewhat compatible. And you also say essentially all the time, which might indicate introversion. But then you posted the Lakers 18 times in the past 2 years, which is a real sign of stability and positivity. And I never wrote the Lakers once, not once.
You hate sports.
Emotionally stable people talk about sports.
Really?
You use the word chillin' 5 times. The only time I've ever said chillin' is in this conversation. Or blessings. I have never said blessings in my life.
You just said it twice.
I'm sick and neurotic and introverted. I'm not good for you. I'm not.
Honey, I love you. I love that you're analytical. I learn something new from you every day. I love that you're an introvert. You taught me how great it is to just stay home and chill. I even love that you're neurotic, though today might be a bit much. We're good for each other. Opposites, right?
I don't know.
I know. And I'll essentially say crazy essentially every second I essentially talk if it'll make you happy.
I'm going to take 5 years off your life.
No.
If you were a smoker, it would be just about as unhealthy as living with me.
I love you, Lee.
I love you too, Bri.
I want to live with you.
I want to live with you too.
Good. Can I come help you pack? I'm very good at wrapping dishes.
I don't know.
I can be there in 2 hours.
But
Yeah? What? What, hon?
your county is still really toxic.
Ah, you're so crazy. Essentially.
I would say that there's layers. Yeah, that's what I'd say. Do you mind if I smoke? Oh, I miss Europe, Paris especially. Not that I've been there, but as a place that I once thought I might go and, smoke in a cafe next to a man with a 5 o'clock shadow. Yeah, I miss that. I missed that. I missed that potential episode of my life that never happened. I missed it so I could go to nursing school, so I could work, so that ultimately I could, I guess, end up here and have my character questioned by you about choices that I made. Not even choices. No, not choices. Decisions. But not even decisions. Reflexes. I would say it's more like reflexes. No one died. No one was hurt. You realize that, right? Jesus. Non-maleficence. You heard of it? Non-maleficence. It means do no harm. That's my main principle in work, in life. That's what I'm about. If you knew me, you'd know that. Non-maleficence. Look it the fuck up if you want to. Non-mal, like mal, meaning bad. So non-bad, meaning good. Efficence. Good effing science. This is what I call it. Don't hurt anyone. Don't do anything stupid. Rule number 1. So yeah. And I live by that. I do. You should just really just not listen to things people say about me. I'm sorry. If you have a problem with me or with something I've supposedly done, you've been lied to. And how does that feel? How does it feel to know you've been lied to? I'm saying to know for a fact that you've been lied to. How's that feel? Not good, right? You're pretty fucking terrible, right? Yeah, I know. I would know. Hydration. I've saved some lives, if that interests you. I mean, not that it should be surprising. Yeah, I saved a shit ton of lives. What do you think I'm doing all day? I've saved all kinds of lives. I've added a lot of years to a lot of lives. But nurses, we don't care about getting credit for it. If our patients appreciate us, the good patients, if they appreciate us, that's all we care about. That's all any of us cares about, honestly, being good at our jobs and being good to our families and our friends and just being good. That's all that matters to us. I mean, not all of us. There are exceptions. There are always exceptions, but there's always exceptions, right? The exception that proves the rule. I'm not the exception. I'm the rule. I can assure you. Doctors, I can't really comment on in terms of what they care about, in terms of recognition or whatever. I don't know. They're wired different. They're like, they're a little conceited. I mean, not all of them, definitely not all of them, but like a lot of them. I mean, they do really important shit. Don't get me wrong. And, you know, they're the ones that get sued or blamed when someone dies. So fine. If someone had died, that's who you'd be talking to, right? You'd be mad at the doctor if somebody died, or if somebody was actually hurt, you'd be looking for a doctor to blame. But yeah, I guess back to me, back to your judgment of me, your bullshit judgment of me, as if you have the expertise or the knowledge or the right. I mean, yes, you're absolutely entitled to stand knee deep in the horse shit of your own truth if that's what makes you happy, if that's what makes you feel superior. Anyway, yes, there are protocols. And yes, we break them, all of them. And yes, I have deviated from protocol on numerous occasions. And no, nobody has even been harmed by it. And no, recommending that a new mother use Similac rather than breastfeed her baby is not a crime. Every woman is not the same. Every mother is not the same. You want me to administer care by the book? Okay. Well, when all my patients start living their lives by the book, then I'll do that. Just the best way I can explain it is like, okay, say you're going backpacking in, I don't know, Europe. Let's just say you're doing that, living out this fantasy that never happened for me and never will. I mean, I've considered going, I've considered taking a vacation. I could almost afford it now, especially now that the flights are cheap as shit. Let's hope that lasts for a while. But like, I feel like it would be a letdown. Like I'm older than backpackers are supposed to be. I've missed my window to do random shit like that. I have kids. I'd miss them. I'd be stressed. I'd end up having sex with somebody. I'd regret it immediately. I'd honestly rather just stay home and complain. But yeah, okay. Back to the scenario. So you're young and you're backpacking and you go to some, I guess, forest, like an old Europe forest, if they still have those. Anyway, a place with trails, a place backpackers go to carry their backpacks around, and you've never been there before. And I'm there. I'm not me in this scenario. I'm like a European, like a tour guide. Like I know the lay of the land. Okay. And I'm like, hey, welcome to Europe. Welcome to the forest. And you're like, thanks. And I'm like, where are you planning on going? And you pull out a map. Okay. The map in this metaphor is the protocol. You got me? The medical protocols, the policies, the procedures, the rules. Breast is best. That's what the map represents. You got me. Do you mind if I light another cigarette? Do you mind if I just act like a fucking chain smoker for the duration of this bullshit that you're putting me through? Thanks. I'm not this mean, by the way. I'm very nurturing. You know, mean people don't really become nurses. It's too hard. It's too stressful to pretend to care about people. I truly do care about people, all people. And if, God forbid, you suddenly became a patient of mine tomorrow, I'd give you the best possible care I could. No matter who you are, no matter what color you are, I'd give you my best. I would. Just so we're clear. Okay. Okay, so there you are in Europe, and I'm your tour guide, and you show me your map. And I look at it, and I'm like, yeah, actually, you should probably know the trails are really dangerous this time of year. There are a lot of muggers on these trails, and they prey on idiot tourists like you, and you don't look like you can fight off a mugger or a forest monster or whatever is lurking in the woods. So I'd recommend that instead you go, and then some fucking med student pokes their head in and they're like, why aren't you following the protocol? I mean, right? And now I have to stop doing my job and explain to that to blindly follow the protocol every time, regardless of whether or not a given patient looks like they can handle it, is fucking stupid. Just do no harm. Non-malfeasance, remember? So anyway, the moral of the backpacking story is you're the tour guide for the reason. You've got to know more than just what's on the map, and you've got to follow your gut about what to tell your patients, AKA where to send your tourists and where not to send them. And I am sorry it is this way, but sometimes you have to save people from themselves. And when those people are new mothers, work in an ER for a little while. I promise you, work in a maternity ward. The first time you have to treat a newborn that's going through withdrawal, or a baby, or a toddler that's been hurt and nobody will give you a straight answer. I know some people are dealing with a lot of shit. I get it. But at a certain point, you do get numb to it. You have to. You can't not go numb eventually to the sad truth that you just can't trust some people. Like the way you don't trust me because you think I didn't follow the rules or that I'm some kind of, I don't even know what you think or why you think it. You know who breaks the rules all the time on the fly? Surgeons. There's a plan before you start cutting. There's a roadmap. There are predetermined procedures. And then when you're in there, you see what's really going on. And what do you know? Some surgeons decide they need to improvise. And who questions them? If a patient survives and recovers, who questions them? Nobody died. Nobody got their feelings hurt. The bad patients don't care at all. None of them do. Half of them don't even look me in the eye. They tell me their lies. I roll my eyes. They roll theirs. They get discharged. They go home. It's over. And that should be the end of it, right? I'm not arguing against breast is best. Okay? So if you're like a bunch of boob crusaders, calm down. I'm not arguing with you. You are right. It's been proven. Everyone knows the science. But the idea that I am hurting someone because I suggested that a woman going through heroin withdrawal tries Similac instead of risking whatever she put into her system being passed on through her milk. You have to be kidding me. And my patient, who ended up complaining, actually, it wasn't her directly. The complaint came from the family, apparently. She never once looked me in the eye. I'd ask her if she was taking her prenatal vitamin. She'd say, yeah. No eye contact, none. Like, she didn't even bother to try to sound convincing. She just decided, when I walked into the room, she decided, you know what, I'm going to lie to this bitch, and there's nothing she can do about it. And she was right. I don't have any recourse. If patients lie, they lie. And she happened to be Black, this woman, which, if I'm honest, I was probably trying even harder to trust her because, like, I get it. I get that there's, a divide. White women, if they're ghetto and they're lying to me, I don't even try. Black women, I'll try. White women, no. Like this one white girl, she tells me she's taking her iron supplements. I check her hemoglobin, she's low. I tell her I know she's lying. She doubles down. She's like, maybe someone tainted the test results. I don't believe that. I'm smoking another cigarette. If my doctor asked me if I smoked and how much I smoked, I would tell the truth. I wouldn't lie. I need to know. They need to know. They need to know so they can take care of me properly. So I talked to a friend of mine who also happens to be an RN and who happens to be Black. And I don't do that thing where I casually drop the fact that I have Black friends as a way to prove anything. What I'm saying is I asked for my friend's perspective on this because she also knew this patient, this Black patient. And also, I want to know, is it me? Why is the family complaining about me? Why is this a thing? Is it something I said or did? Is there something about the way I interact with her that puts her off? And it turns out my Black friend does not like being put in the position of having to speak for other Black people. She refuses to speculate, refuses even to give me her impressions of the patient. Well, no, she kind of did say one thing. She rolled her eyes. She kind of, when I mentioned the patient's name, she rolled her eyes. So that's what I have to go on in terms of an outside perspective. And I guess your perspective. I don't know if I'd listen to you, honestly, if you had something to share. Yeah, no, probably not. Probably definitely not. No, there were a few years there just after I started. There were a few years there where I was really, really nice to everyone, even when they weren't nice back. And I felt pretty happy. Most of the time, on the whole, I remember being a lot happier. Maybe that's just the way memory works. Because in the end, happiness is more real. I don't know. Somebody told me that once. Made sense. And I can't remember what I thought of the patients at the time. I think I just kind of told myself that my patients were good people, even if it was later proved otherwise. And I guess it was just, eventually it was proven otherwise a lot of times. Or at least enough times to make an impression. And my reflexes adjusted, I guess. Does that mean I sometimes treat a patient unfairly through no fault of their own? I like to think the answer is no. But I don't know how to totally avoid, reality. Everything seems a little impossible right now. I mean, could I be better at my job? I could. Sure, I could. I mean, I used to be, I think. But, well, I'm not. I'm just, I'm just gonna keep smoking now.
Graveyard. I like it. When we tell participants to pick a meeting place outside their lab or office, most pick Starbucks. This is thinking outside the Starbucks. Lesson number 1, if you're going to ask someone for money, you should laugh at their jokes.
Oh, yes, sorry.
So, you gonna offer me a 40 ounce like we're a couple teenagers sneaking around in the cemetery?
I didn't bring beverages. I am sorry, that was an oversight.
Wrong answer. 1, I'm joking.
Haha.
B, don't apologize. It's weak. You're a scientist. Everything you do is for a reason. You don't provide beverages, it's for a reason. 20% of alcohol poisoning incidents occur in cemeteries on Tuesdays during full moons or whatever. You got it?
Except accuracy is quite important.
Who's the private sector emerging technologies entrepreneurial consultant here? Huh? You or me? Here's a hint. It's not you. You may teach at your fancy ivory tower university.
Underfunded state school.
But this week, you are my student, and I am the teacher. Teacher with the 6-word title. Here it comes again. Private sector emerging technologies entrepreneurial consultant. Boom. Now, I want you to start again because you actually piqued my interest with this place. Alrighty, this is your pitch meeting. Off you go. Pitch away.
Okay. Thank you for meeting with me here today.
Polite. Let's start.
I would like you to know that I work very hard to get federal funding for my research. 18-hour days, often with more hours devoted to grant proposals than actual research. But compared to many of my colleagues, I've been very successful. Now,
good. Always highlight success. Continue.
Yeah, thank you. But you see, most federal funding comes in 3-year cycles. After 3 years, that's it. Your funding is over. And if I'm working on a promising new technology, there's a large time gap between the initial years of funding for basic research and the time it takes to produce viable product. That gap, we scientists call the valley of death, where new technologies go to die. So you can think of these graves as where much promising research is buried. Well, research that was well funded initially, but could not cross the valley of death. In this grave, for instance, is research about using nanotechnology to create the biosensors in fiber optic textiles.
Air horn, air horn. Did you not hear it the first time?
But I was about to explain.
All about your dead projects? Yes. Boo-hoo. Government funding falls short. Private companies don't invest in basic research. Which is why on your questionnaire you requested to pitch, drumroll please, angel investors, am I right? I'm way ahead of you. That's 1. B, never complain. Or talk about dead projects. 3, I'm disappointed. Thought this graveyard thing was going to have something more personal.
More personal than most of my life's work being dead and buried.
A story, a personal story about a person. You're supposed to have one prepared. It's in the packet. I thought you'd have a story about someone buried here that means something to you.
Well, yes, there is that too.
Seriously? And you didn't start with that? I'll tell you what you buried here. The lead. You know, like I did that? Well, don't stand there. Tell me who died. Whoa, wait, I skimmed your questionnaire. I'm thinking Chernobyl. You're Russian, right?
Ukrainian. My family is from Ukraine.
Whatever. Just give me the nuclear disaster story, not the boo-hoo, my project didn't get funded. Okay? Here we go. Pitch attempt number 1, failed. I give it an F. But here comes number 2. I'll tee it up for you. Kaplooey, the reactor explodes. I saw the HBO miniseries. And action.
Oh, okay. Yes, well, we lived in Kiev, which is only 100 kilometers from Chernobyl. 60 miles. We were about 60 miles from Chernobyl.
Knew it.
But for 2 weeks after the explosion, we knew nothing, only whispers. Then when they finally admit what happened, most of the children in Kiev, including me, were evacuated to other parts of the country. But my mother, she was a doctor, and the government decides to send her to the exclusion zone in Chernobyl. She was to treat firefighters who were dying because they were exposed to the reactor core.
Hero mom dies. You spend your last dime flying her to America so you can visit her grave.
She did not die. She is okay. She is classified as a liquidator of the Chernobyl disaster, which means she could retire 10 years early, which is around the time she finally tells me. Because growing up, I always bug her that I want a little sister. And she promises me she would give me one. And it's only when I am adult does she tell me why she never fulfilled that promise, why I am only child. Because she was afraid to have another child. She had always intended to, always wanted to, but after Chernobyl. And so you could say that is also who is buried here. The little sister I never got to have.
It's not bad. It's a halfway decent story. Be better, though, if she gave birth to a little girl and she was horribly deformed and died a painful death.
That would be better.
Much. Still, we might be able to work with this. Though you didn't finish it correctly. Personal pitch, you finish it by connecting it to your research. You did read the packet, didn't you?
I read the packet.
Well?
All of these things show how the connection between energy and the environment. That all scientific discoveries have both positive and negative.
The nanotech. That's your sexy stuff. I always finish with the sexy stuff. Page 1 of the packet. It's underlined.
Oh, yes, sorry. Okay. The radiation from Chernobyl, it is something we cannot see with the naked eye, yet causes great damage. This makes people very afraid. What they cannot see makes them more afraid than what they can see. Nanoparticles, they are 10,000 times smaller than the width of a human hair. And so people fear it. The nanoparticles embedded in products, if they are released, could be toxic, like radiation.
No.
No.
No. I'm going to have to give this the air horn. Strike 2. Because you can't tell a story that makes people afraid of nanotechnology, then ask for money so you can create things using nanotechnology.
I'm not trying to make them afraid. Much of my work is about quantifying possible toxicity in order to create better, safer versions of nanomaterials.
No talking about fear at all.
No, I can't avoid it. Last time I gave a report to Congress, it's all they ask about. Tell us, is it really true self-replicating nanobots can destroy the world?
Say what now?
Yes, every question. It's all they ask. Tell us about the gray goo effect. We hear this technology can create submicroscopic nanobots that can self-replicate exponentially and within days achieve enough mass to consume all life on the Earth.
Holy mother of God.
No, this is not going to happen. This is not a valid concept. These politicians are just Googling nanobot.
That's what I'm doing right the hell now.
No.
Huh. Well, it looks like a tiny submarine.
Yes, a submarine shrunken down to nano size and then inserted into the body to fight disease.
It's pretty cool, actually. Well, except that self-replication part where they consume everything on Earth.
No, it is not a valid concept. You cannot take a submarine and shrink it to that size. At the nanoparticle size, the fundamental properties of an object change. And it has no energy. How could it self-replicate? And even if it could, if for something that small to survive, it needs to change, evolve. Without it evolving, it would be easy to defend against.
All right, good. This is good. That's your pitch. I'm the guy you want to fund because, believe me, you want me around to fight these nanobots when they start replicating. Scare the crap out of them.
No, I thought you said do not use fear.
Well, you're using it stupidly. But with this, you use the fear to cast yourself as the potential savior of humanity.
No, I can't do that.
Wrong answer.
Am I to believe you're encouraging me to propagate false information?
Am I to believe you're encouraging me to propagate false information? Do you want money for your research? Or you just want to be another loser in a lab coat?
Excuse me.
Excuse? I was just about to fail you for your second pitch attempt. You understand me? That would be 2 strikes. Another swing and miss. You're out.
I'm confused by this analogy. If I am the one pitching, how am I also the batter?
Listen, smart guy. The foundation spends a lot of money on these workshops. Makes me wonder how your future funding proposals will be looked on, especially after my report on this failure of a pitch meeting.
Is it a threat?
Advice. I'm advising you to get off your high horse, your, oh, I'm so mighty and high, I don't need to listen to this crass business guy no matter how successful and rich and handsome he is.
So you want me to lie? Exaggerate?
I want you to get your funding, you nitwits. Let me tell you something. When I visited NASA, me and a group of other angel investors, they were presenting on an asteroid defense program, a shield around Earth. You know what they did for the presentation? They showed us a movie. Armageddon. Guy saves the Earth from the asteroid. People ate it up. Checkbooks came out on the spot.
I see. So for my next pitch about nanotechnology, perhaps I should get Bruce Willis to star in a remake of Honey, I Shrunk the Kids.
You know what, wise guy? I'd fund that movie way before I'd fund your research.
You don't even know what my research is.
I don't need to. I know a loser in a lab coat when I see one.
I understand this program is necessary, helping scientists to be entrepreneurial, but this method, what is it? A hazing ritual?
Oh, please. This is nothing. 5 years ago, we did it Celebrity Apprentice style. You fired. But that sort of fell out of favor. Go figure.
And the pedagogy of this approach?
And the pedagogy of this approach. I'll tell you what the pedagogy is. And yes, I know what that word means. It's toughen you up. That's your pedagogy. That's why the foundation hires guys like me, to toughen you namby-pamby scientists up in the business world. You want to compete in that world? You need to come strong, not waste my time. Make fun of Armageddon all you want, but it worked. Angel investors have a profile. Believe me, that's what crowd. I know.
Yeah. Angel investors are not looking to fund just anything. They want to be inspired.
You did read the packet, man. Oh boy. Angel investors, they want to fund something that saves the world and get filthy rich while doing it.
All right. How about the air we breathe? Is that worthy enough for your angel investors?
Ooh, look who's up on his hind legs. All right, here you go. Third and final swing. Bring it, Nano Man. Last chance.
All right. In our lab, we use particles of titanium dioxide at the nano level, and when activated by sunlight, these particles serve as a catalyst to break down organic matter. Things like bacteria or dirt or grime. We embed these particles into a spray that can be used to coat building materials, making them essentially self-cleaning. And at the same time, the coating does the same to pollutants around it, speeding up decomposition of things like volatile organic compounds in the air.
Huh. And this could be used on existing buildings, not just new construction.
Yes.
Like over every building in an entire city?
Conceivably. Yeah, eventually, if many factors come together.
You're telling me it's possible to use these types of nanoparticles to create a city full of buildings that clean themselves and also the air around them?
Conceivably. But no air horn.
Hang on, Nano Boy. This coating, when it's added to new building materials, it'll make them more expensive, right?
Yes, but...
And it would be costly to cover an entire existing building with this stuff.
Yeah, which is why we need
weigh these expenses against how often and at what cost buildings are normally cleaned. It's pretty doubtful the return on investment would make it profitable.
Yeah, and what about the improved air quality? In New York, the Department of Health estimates that 3,000 people die a year due to pollution-related illnesses.
Are you saying you can guarantee your nano coating will save 3,000 lives a year?
Demonstrating precise air quality improvement is very difficult given complexities of air circulation and atmosphere.
Yeah, so that's a problem. To pitch this to angel investors, you need to know the exact number of lives you'd save.
But this could clearly benefit humanity, which is what they want.
You still have to figure out the cost-benefit ratio.
The cost-benefit ratio of a human life?
Listen, Mr. Former Soviet Union, you're in America now. Capitalism is a cost-benefit for everything.
Oh, now how do you do that? Tell me, how do you calculate the cost of a person?
No, not cost, man. It's called VSL, value of a statistical life. Whole bunch of ways to get it. Look at the life insurance or at income times, life expectancy. This shit's boring. You want the cutting edge VSL calculations? Then it's all about the cliff.
The cliff.
We're at a cliff's edge, man. And I offer you $1 million to jump. And let's say you got only a 5% chance of going splat. Those odds, a lot of people are choosing to jump. This varies, obviously. Currently, the U.S. Office of Management and Budget puts the average value of a statistical life in the range of 7 to 9 million. It's how they decide on all sorts of things. a water filtration plant. Say the cost of building it is more than the VSLs of the lives it would save, then hey, they don't build it. Oh well.
And I imagine the poorer people have lower VSLs, being more desperate for the money, more willing to take the risk for less compensation.
Naturally.
Well, it does the massive environmental injustice we have today.
Which can also be calculated.
Only by an asshole such as yourself.
Did you just call me an asshole?
I did.
Wow. Thank you. Thank you. That means I'm clearly doing my job well. Oh, and by the way, you failed. That was strike 3. You definitely need more seasoning. You'll have to retake the course. I mean, if they let you, which I doubt they will. Alrighty then. We're done. Or more accurately, you are. Shall we head back? Hello? Earth to Vladimir.
My name's not Vladimir.
I know. I'm messing with you. If you still not caught on.
You have something on your face. Your face.
I get it. Score 1 for you. Good to have someone around to tell you when you have broccoli in your teeth. Okay, let's go.
You must write me a check first. For $1 million.
Oh yeah? And why would I do that?
To fund my research. And because you value your life.
Wow. You are really bad at this. Yes, cleaner air. That's great. But I have to tell you, when push comes to shove, angel investors like myself, we've got enough money to build a damn bubble around ourselves. We'll be fine.
No. The check is not for future dangers. It is for now. You're in danger right now.
Vlad, this is a little pathetic, don't you think?
It's danger from something you can't see.
Okay. Okay, I'll play along. What's the danger I can't see? Is it the ghost of your deformed sister rising from the grave?
No, it's sexier than that. Nanoparticles embedded on my questionnaire and now on your face when you touched it.
I see nanoparticles on my face, like the self-cleaning ones. Which means what? I'm in danger of having perpetually clean cheekbones?
No. These nanoparticles are different. Instead of repelling airborne particles and pollutants, the one I put on the questionnaire do the opposite. They attract particles. Particles like bacteria, germs, viruses.
You're full of it.
Do not worry. I calculated the cost-benefit of this action. I believe it's worth it.
I'll just wash my face when I get home.
Nanoparticles, small enough to penetrate the skin.
And next you're going to tell me you're the only one with the antidote.
I wouldn't wait for Bruce Willis if I were you.
Oh, you know what? This really isn't funny.
No, it is not.
So you threaten me and think I'll pay you?
I suppose it depends on how you see the value of your statistical life. Oh, excuse me, VSL.
What if I call the cops?
A mad scientist put submicroscopic particles on a piece of paper, and now they're attracting invisible lethal microbes to my face. Arrest him.
I'm going to Google this.
Google is a horror show.
Oh, my God.
Told you.
This is just a practice pitch meeting for pedagogical purposes.
Maybe I'll bury you here among all my metaphorical babies.
100,000. I'll write you a check for 100,000, for 100 grand right now. If you tell me that you're joking. 200 grand. Okay. $1 million. Here, I'm writing it right now. $1 million. There, take it.
Thank you.
Well,
tell
me you were joking.
Of course I was joking, you nitwit.
I knew it. I knew it. Son of terrifying me like that? That was nasty. It's nasty stuff. You really think I'm not going to cancel that check the second we're out of here?
I assume that you will.
Are you kidding? Man, oh man! It took you a while to soak in my wisdom, but I think you got it now. Now that money is all yours. You earned it.
Really?
Absolutely. And by the way, I'm giving you an A in the course. You're right. You're right. A+. Now, can we get out of here already? This place is giving me the creeps.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you. You please go. I'll be there in a moment. Thank you, my dear little sister. We did it. Good night.
Three times for comedy, 3 times muted. Okay, I hope you enjoyed the plays. Before we start the panel discussion, I just want to thank Meredith McDonough, our director, for all 3 plays, for doing a wonderful job, and our actors, Cassie Beck, Corey Brill, Brian Quijada, Eva Kaminsky, and Johnny Wu. Very appreciative. And also Lori Kai, who for all of her behind-the-scenes work. I really appreciate it. And now I'd like to introduce our panel moderator, my colleague and dramaturg and faculty at the Alda Center, Elizabeth Boysha. Hey, Beth.
Hi, I'm so glad that you invited me to do this. These were wonderful, wonderful plays. So I know that we've had a few comments coming in during the readings themselves, but I'd like to encourage all of you who are listening in to go ahead and use that comment function to ask some questions, and we'll be collecting them here on this end, and I hope we can get to as many of them as we can. Ken, as we're waiting for the playwrights and scientists to come on, I'm wondering if you could share a little bit more about the process of, I guess we heard a little bit of the inception and the yes and from Laura and the generous funding, all wonderful, but, could you get a little bit more granular about, when did the process start? How did you pair people up?
Sure. Thank you. The process started, I guess, last winter, and then started in earnest in the spring once we kind of knew it was going to be digital as opposed to in person. And I went to, let me back up. A lot of these kind of commissions for science plays like Sloan Foundation, things like that, they tend to be very general, right? They tend to be just write about science in general from any era, right? So the idea came to be more, I wanted to be more local with it. I want it to be different than that way, and really shine a light on scientists and science happening here at Stony Brook, because there is such great things happening at Stony Brook. And I thought that would be interesting to pair the playwrights and the scientists right from the start, right? So they're working on it together in a way. So what happened was in selecting the playwrights, and I selected 2 wonderful playwrights who I had a relationship with and knew their work and loved their work and admire them. And we put out an open call, and a variety of scientists were interested. And so we made these pairs, and the playwrights and the scientists had a conversation, a Zoom conversation. My conversation with Alexander Orlov went on for hours. He was extremely generous with his time. And so from those conversations, then the playwrights went away and wrote drafts of the plays. And then there was a conversation thereafter. They shared the draft of the plays with their partner scientists, who then, if there was feedback about the representation of the science or about their own lives, gave that sort of feedback, and there were revisions from there. Then after the plays were set, then we went about casting and finding actors for it. That's sort of how it came together.
Wonderful. I see that there are actually a few questions just about some of that, about process. So that's a great way to start. I think at any minute now we can get, hey, Nathan is here. Claire, hi. Alex, Andrew, welcome.
Hello.
Hey, maybe we could start by going around and just having each of you, including yourself, Ken, just to make sure that we have the pairs straight as we're listening to the conversation that comes after that. So why don't we start with you, Ken?
Sure. I'm Ken Weitzman. I wrote the play A Walk with the Thunder Through the Valley of Death, or How I Learned to Stop Worrying and Love Angel Investors. And my partner was Alex Orlov.
Alex, would you introduce yourself?
Sure. You can hear me, right?
I can.
Yeah, wonderful. So I'm faculty member in Material Science and Chemical Engineering department. I'm also in chemistry and several other departments. Of course, I have an accent. Might not be as pronounced as the one portrayed in the play, but I do have an accent, so I admit that. And I work in nanotech. I also advised a number of governmental agencies, and the only small inaccuracy was that the report was to, I was giving a presentation at the British Parliament on nanotech, but because it's American play, we substituted with Congress, but it's close enough. So I still had to talk to politicians.
Great. Thanks so much. And why don't I go to Andrew next?
Hi, I'm Andrew Schwartz, and I'm a computer scientist, but I really work in this interdisciplinary space with psychologists and health researchers, and was associated with the first play, studying people's language and how it relates to who they are, and which I thought was I thought that the actors did a great job, and my research tends to focus lately a lot more on we apply these sorts of technologies to get better assessments of mental health, things like depression, and to help do more personalized care in that way. We decided to go with the play with Deb Laffer. I think she's going to join soon. She suggested to maybe take a more lighthearted version of it because of the length of it. We didn't want to get too deep into the mental health issues, but I thought it did bring up a lot of great scientific, a lot of points related to this area of research and a lot of the challenges we go through.
Great. And I think Deb is here. She's in the waiting room. I'm going to see can we get 7 people on this thing?
We should be able to.
Yeah. All right. Well, I'm sure she'll join us in a second. I'll have her introduce herself, but I'll go to the last pair. Nathan, would you start it off?
Hi, I'm Nathan Davis. I wrote the play Admonitions, and my partner was Claire Whitney.
And Claire.
Hi, my name is Claire Whitney. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm a new faculty member in the School of Nursing. I am so impressed, Nathan and Cassie, by how amazing that was. And it really did represent in such an interesting way the flip side of the coin of my science, which is about bioethical and moral considerations that clinicians bring to particularly reproductive and maternal child health care.
All right. So I'm just going to send a message to Deb. Deb, I think you need to jump onto some other link so that you can join us. I think she's out there somewhere. She can hear us, but we can't get her logged in.
Yeah, she commented.
I think it was on the public stream. Yeah.
Yeah, I resent her the link, so hopefully she will join us.
Great. Well, we can get started with some general questions. Ken has shared with all of us that these conversations occurred and talked about how in depth the conversation went between the two of you. But I imagine that all of the pairs had different trajectories for this. So maybe if I could go back to where we ended up with Nathan and Claire and have you started off and share a little bit about, how long you talked, how often, what kind of input into the play Claire had. I'd love to hear more about that.
Sure. Well, we had a conversation for about an hour or so before I started writing the play, and the conversation was excellent. And Claire kind of broke down, her research, which I'm not going to try to do now because she's here. But I found it really exciting, just what she's doing. And so I thought about it for a while, and I didn't write the play until a couple of weeks later after things kind of gestated. I shared with her first draft. She gave some feedback, which was really helpful to kind of, sharpen the details, because I don't really have experience as a medical practitioner of any kind. So she was able to really help on that front. And then I wrote on the draft, and then we rehearsed, and Cassie did an amazing job, and Meredith did a wonderful job directing, and then we saw the result just a little while ago.
Yeah, that's right. Claire, have you ever worked on a play before? Is this are you a theater person? What was it like from your perspective?
Yeah, this is my first time being on this side of a theater production. I enjoyed theater in high school and undergrad and college, but haven't been involved in any side of theater in a while. But it was an incredible experience working with Nathan.
That's great. We have Deb here, so I think I'll jump right back to you and give you a chance to introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Deb Laffer. I wrote the first play, Words, Words, Words. I worked with Andrew Schwartz.
Okay, I'm glad that you made it in. And so the question is just to have maybe you and Andrew talk a little bit about how the process went from either of your perspectives. So, you want to jump right in?
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, when we spoke, Andrew talked about, he deals with a lot of kind of heavy subjects like suicide, and they have like remarkable results in tracking people's likelihood or danger of suicide by looking at their social media. But I knew in a 10-minute play, it's not really responsible to dive into there, and he was reluctant for that also. So yeah, I went for a more comic approach, and we spoke for a while, and I did a first draft, and in it, the scientist was the one who had decided to determine whether they were appropriate for each other through her work, and rightly so. Andrew was like, if it could be not her decision to do that, because it isn't exactly what we do, we would never do that, and it's not really ethical. So I did some rewrites after that. Yeah.
Oh, I love that insight into process. Andrew, do you have anything you want to add?
Yeah, no, well, I thought Deb did a really good job, and it's amazing. Like, I guess maybe some of the inside jokes about how just the researchers interact in this space where we're watching words. There's actually some studies that show it's really hard for people to pay attention to words and actually process in the way a computer does. I've always imagined what it would be like. I guess what she put into the play was something I've always wanted to see kind of imagined. And I also kind of felt like I could relate to Lee, to both characters a little bit. I think there's a little bit in Scientists, there's a little bit of Lee and a little bit of Brian.
I think it's so interesting. I just want to pick up on something you just said about how it's harder for humans to pick up on language than it is for computers. Have you worked with playwrights before? Because I wonder if there's something in that, and it was actually something that I was thinking to ask Deb about, because in writing this script, you had to put in the coding, right? The habits of speech, all of those things that could be mined then by Lee, so I imagine you're paying very close attention, to the words.
I have to say, it is like they take so much data in order to make a determination. But it has made me notice what people post on Facebook a lot differently. I'm looking for keywords in a way that I hadn't before. Knowing that it is in no way indicative of anything, but I have started.
Fascinating, nonetheless.
Yes, I have.
Great. Oh, that's
right.
Yeah. Maybe I could loop back to some of the other playwrights too, and ask about, how the science that you had learned about in this conversation and the scientist had influenced the setting of the play, that maybe even the form of the play in some way. Ken, I know you took the part of the title from this existing valley of death, right, and put all of that together. I would love to hear a little bit more about how the sort of writing from the outside in worked in this pair.
Sure. Yeah, I like that phrasing, right? It wasn't starting with an idea and doing the research to fill that in. It was all this amazing science and material that I learned about and then researched after our conversation, my conversation with Alex. The thing that struck me, I was ever aware of what the mission of this was, right? Part of this was about communicating the science, but I was really amazed in looking at lectures, in talking to Alex, but then watching lectures of his and things like that, just how good he was at communicating his science to lay people or to whatever the audience was. I mean, he's really terrific at that. And so I felt like he really doesn't need a lot of help doing that, but he told a lot of stories about funding and the difficulty of it. And that really struck me and bothered me. I felt sort of outraged on his behalf. And he did talk about the graveyard metaphor. I'd love to say that I made anything up, but I didn't. I mean, really, I took everything from Alex. It was more like arranging it in a way. So he did talk about this valley of death. He did talk about a trip to a graveyard that he did take with a colleague one time. And so there was all this material, but I think the thing that compelled me really was this idea of funding and being in the arts and funding always being an issue and always having to explain what you do and justify why it deserves funding. To hear that from Alex when he's doing this, world-changing work, that he's still struggling for funding, maybe naively, that, just struck me. And again, maybe naively so, but still, that was my emotional response to it. And so that's the direction I went with it, because I felt like that was what was, in this case, important to convey.
And it's a dark comedy.
Sure.
I mean, actually, all of the plays were. I found myself chuckling. You can see the comment thread from the folks who are listening as well. There was a lot of laughter going on, even though we couldn't hear that as we could if we were enjoying, the before times type theater. Yeah.
Well, there's the old saying, right? And I think they attribute it to Shaw, but lots of people. If you're going to tell people the truth, you better make them laugh or they'll kill you. So certainly entertainment value was at issue.
Yeah. Oh, Alex, I might loop back around and ask you about some of these other details that occurred in the play in a little bit, but I want to make sure that I go to Nathan as well and toss that same prompt over to you. In thinking about the science, did that influence the form that the play, like at what point did it become a monologue? When did the character get born?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I don't exactly know, okay, so what happened was we had this conversation, which I thought was, I just found to be really inspiring and fascinating. And really, I came away being like, okay, this research that Claire is doing in and of itself is really important, and it really matters. It has like major implications for how we live and for the way that people interact with medicine and all kinds of things. So I was more just thinking like, okay, well, how am I not going to make it terrible? And then I guess it came down to the fact that with a monologue, it was just easier for me to start, and I just never looked back once I kind of got rolling. I think part of it was there was flexibility in once you have someone talking kind of to an audience, I guess I eventually landed on the idea of it being a sort of metaphorical court of public opinion that she's addressing. It allowed flexibility to play with ideas and how a person processes their own thoughts. But I can't say that I had specific exact intentions for how the forum interacted. It's more just, like Claire should talk about her research, because I feel like that's really what where the meat of it is.
Yeah. Yeah, and just to comment on that, I think when we saw that one actor there it's very interesting doing the performance on Zoom, because then she was talking to a court of public opinion. It was all of us, straight on. And I found that very, very engaging in this forum. But I think Nathan was tossing it over to you, Claire. Do you want to talk a little bit about how this RN character intersects with your research? I think before you'd said something about the flip side of the coin, and I would love for you to share a little bit more about that with our audience.
Sure, I'd be happy to. I'd say my impression of how Nathan represented my research is similar to his opening lines, which is it's layers. There are her embodying the character of a clinician itself. She at the same time embodied the character of a patient or a person receiving care. And which is so interesting on, like he mentioned, a metaphorical level, because of the relational dynamics that exist between clinicians and people seeking care, especially when it comes to moral judgments. So it was absolutely incredible to watch come to life and be embodied. But my research is about the way that clinicians bring their moral judgment to care, particularly about when people use substances during pregnancy and lactation. And the big finding at the end of this study was that it actually had nothing to do with the clinician's perception of risk to fetus or infant or person, or the legal or illicit nature of the substances that one might assume is the cause for when a clinician might judge their patient's substance use, but actually because of something so key to the relationship between them, namely truth-telling. So all these mentions of lies and what it feels like to be lied to. And the reason for that has to do with this reflex that clinicians experience. They interpret this mistrust in themselves that they're not doing a good enough job of caring for the people that they're trying to care for. So I mean, if you watch it again, knowing that, your mind will be blown. It's so incredible, the layers that he built into the play.
That's wonderful. I think that piece was probably the least sort of on the nose mention of your research. So I think that was really helpful, and is really, I'm sure most of the people listening are also, as I am, like, oh yeah, I can see how that fits in and all of those things. We're getting I think a question from the feed. Can you see it on the bottom of the screen there? I thought it was interesting that the nurse admitted to trying harder with Black patients in order to not seem racist. Did white people's recent reckoning with race inform this play at all? It's a great question.
Yes, I mean, I guess the answer is yes. I think that race is always kind of ever present, in the world, certainly in America. Certainly can't deny the fact that we're having this sort of reckoning in our national discourse right now. But I think that this type of what I find really fascinating about the research that Claire shared is that it's actually the minute details of human interaction that really carry so much weight. So whether or not we're facing a moment where we're talking about race with a capital R all the time, is actually just these questions of like, can I trust this person, and how race and our ideas of race interfere with that. And so I think that in a way, the national reckoning that we're having like highlights these things and in a good way makes us aware. But the solution to the problem, I think, has a lot to do with the way that people treat each other. And I think that a lot of what I took away from my conversation with Claire was that there's potential for a person to interrupt their reflexive response if they're aware that might be happening. And it's not only about race, but it also is. So that's why it's in the play.
Yeah. Great. Thanks for addressing that. I'm wondering about some of the fact checking that went on. I feel like there was an anecdote that you had alluded to, Ken, at least, that in terms of Deb and Andrew, there was a change that was made. Did you already mention that, or is there more? Is it a different anecdote about how when Andrew went and read your version of your first draft, that there was some feedback that led to a change?
Well, there were a lot of places where I just put in language and put little stars going, what's the real language you would use here, Andrew? Yeah. So he was very helpful in that way because, I wanted her very, very mired in the science to the extent that she almost couldn't live her life.
Can't turn it off.
Away from it.
Yeah,
so
I felt like Deb pulled a lot of the good terminology out from our literature in the first place or from the interview. And but I enjoyed being able to add those little pieces in there. And that one thing just on, because it's we take a lot of care for privacy and ethics when we do this research. The one thing we wanted to make Lee not the one who wanted to initiate, the researcher not the one who wanted to initiate doing a study without her partner's consent.
Right. Great. No, that makes a lot of sense. I guess Ken and Alex, I have a bunch of questions. Did that really happen? Now that Ken has said that you didn't invent anything, Alex,
that's correct. Everything is based on a factual story.
Did you really take a course that was had been like Celebrity Apprentice style?
Yes. Believe it or not, the National Science Foundation, they decided that they have to push scientists to commercialize their research. And I attended the session, and the way they organized it was almost like Celebrity Apprentice. And there's one person who was over there would behave almost like Trump, believe it or not. And I remember what they've done. We went to Texas, Austin, and they gave us a key to a car and said, okay, well, you have one day, you have to drive around Texas, Austin, knock at the doors, and ask random people about your invention and get their feedback. So it's almost like it was exactly like this. And you have to conduct 20 interviews with random people. And after they come back and report to this panel, and this guy who was in charge of the panel, sort of equivalent of Donald Trump, asked me, so how many interviews did you have? I said, we'll have 17, but it's almost 20. He said, no, you're not going to report anything. I told you 20, you go to the back of the room. So they try to humiliate the scientists, and the reason was that they wanted to move them from the pedestal where professors know everything. And the fact that one of the program managers from National Science Foundation asked me this question, so Alex, do you think I'm a hole? It's in front of 5-10 people. I said, please be honest. And I thought for a second, well, okay, he's giving me funding. He asked me whether I think that after that experience, he's that. And I thought for a second and said yes. And after that, he was very happy. So imagine there are 10 people around us, and he would raise his hand and say, listen, just Alex called me this. And he was waiting for this because this is justification of the mission to make scientists uncomfortable and treat them in a way they never experienced before.
And do you think that it had any benefit? I understand you got a really prestigious award, yeah? Recently? Did you get
recently, it's called Oscar of Innovation. which is among only a few which Stony Brook got. But again, I think humiliation is not exactly the type of incentive. And what was also painful in that particular instance, that all of this was happening in front of my student. So so my student was with me, and we are trying to pitch this idea to commercialize a particular technology. So when he raised his hand and pointed at me, everybody was looking at me. It's almost like I'm an idiot.
Oh my God.
So that was experience. So it's almost like Apprentice.
Oh, indeed. No wonder that was so compelling. That was the seed for that play, Ken. My gosh.
He was happy when I called him. He was waiting for this for years, that somebody called him this term, so that would justify his success.
We're getting some great questions from the comment feed, so I think we're going to have Lori pop a few of those in whenever you're ready. Oh, this one's from Claire. What was the writing process like for these plays, adapting them online? So a specific question about the shift from, as Ken said, originally this concept was for live in person. What is the term now? What is the before times theater? In-person theater. And then it ended up being a virtual reading. So I don't know, any of the playwrights want to talk a little bit about that, about writing for StreamYard, writing for this format?
Yeah, it definitely created the parameters that I used. I wanted them to be separate, 2 hours apart, and that they only get to see each other through Zoom. I really brought the pandemic and the terror just of contamination to make her even a little more anxious and neurotic.
Right. Great. No, that's great. Ken, how about you?
Yes, I wanted something that was 2 characters, that was easy to handle in looking at on Zoom, that it wouldn't be a big Brady Bunch sort of thing, which is a little more difficult to follow. I originally thought we were going to be on Zoom, so I was, enamored with all the graveyard virtual backgrounds that I was searching for, and then we found this other platform, StreamYard, which we liked better, and that sort of went out the window. So there was some adjustment on the fly, but in some ways it was disappointing. In some ways it's an interesting challenge, and it's something that Deb, Nathan, and I talked about up front, to say this is what it's going to be. So it doesn't have to be the characters on Zoom. I think Deb smartly did that, and I sort of stupidly did not. But I did have it in my mind to have 2 characters that could make sort of direct contact with us, that was easy to follow in that way. So that certainly affected my choices up front.
Yeah. Great. Nathan, anything to add?
Yeah, I think it probably influenced the choice of one actor somewhat up front, but I kind of took maybe I pretended she was in the theater. I guess I was like living a dream of the future when we'll be back in theaters again. Then I was writing it, and I don't know. Yeah.
So this was a reading, right? There were scripts somewhere, right?
Yeah. The actors, a few of them, they had different techniques in terms of where they placed that. There was some encouragement to learn it as well as you can, because we have found, the sort of intimacy that Nathan achieved with the one-person play, that you can have that with the directly looking at us. So the different actors have different techniques of either having it on the side of their screen and sort of toggling back and forth, but having it be a very short distance that their eye was traveling. Yeah. And in that case, Cassie said she wasn't even looking at herself. She was strictly, had the text up. But I think she learned quite a bit of it, so she was able to get off it. And they're just tremendously skilled at doing it. It makes it look like not a reading. They're tremendous actors in that way.
Well, I also think that the platform helped it seem not like a reading because the audience didn't see the papers. I mean, I knew that they were there, but I was able to really forget. I mean, even to the point where I wasn't quite sure because some of the it was just such a great delivery. So instead of this paper indicating, here we are in a room, you had props, we had Johnny Moo had his laundry and got to get up and go to the door, and he walked off frame, and all that smoking, you can't do that in theaters anymore, right? So we were able to do all these things. I think there's going to be a question for the scientists coming up next that's come in from our viewers. So Lori, pop that in whenever you'd like. Yeah. Did you find the humanities' manner of presenting these topics changing the way you view them or talk about them? Anyone can answer that once you've if you taken that in. I guess how has the process of translating your work into this conversation, knowing that you were talking to a playwright who's going to make a play about it, has that shifted your thinking at all about your own research? And in what way? Do you have different ways you might talk about it?
Maybe I can start.
Sure.
So in fact, it was very delightful to work with Ken and actors, deliver it precisely as needed. I didn't want to cherry pick some small things about the accuracy about scientists, but this is something what I learned because I had a training how to work with media, and therefore this is something which I found that this is a great way to address, and also teach courses which is designed for economists or a social scientist. So this is the summer course which I have, and in fact this idea about how to deliver science to members of Congress. As a grad student, I was in the Democratic Group's office in the United States Congress and Congressional Science Committee. So the NASA story, which Ken highlighted, was a true story about NASA trying to get funding for asteroid defense program. And I was there, and they went there to present to members of Congressional Science Committee, and none of them had a science degree except maybe one staff member. And so they had to use prop, and the prop was Bruce Willis. Not that he came to Congress and start drilling the things to put the explosive in the asteroid, but they use Armageddon clips to explain to members of Congress and their staff members of why it is important. And I lost some respect to NASA because of that, because I thought, well, it's a serious agency. They can use science, they can use animation, but not Bruce Willis. But what I realized later on, that was the right approach. And they're not precise, but they're effective, even though they didn't get funding, whereas in the play, it seems like they're successful. But that's the way to deliver science. Otherwise, people would turn off and they wouldn't listen to a message of complicated terms.
Great. Thank you for starting that off, Alex. Andrew or Claire, care to weigh in?
I could say a little bit what I think many scientists at some point, we interact with the media, and I suppose I, for some reason, expected it to go a little bit more like that with press or journalists, where you have to kind of walk this line of both you want to keep them excited about the work and explain why it matters and make sure they get that across so your work can have more impact, and then balancing that with trying to make sure they don't get it wrong, which inevitably usually happens to some degree. And I think the interesting thing in this process was I feel like you didn't have to worry. There was some things to worry about with getting it right, but I think there was less of that because we're getting to tell a fictional story. Deb got to tell a fictional story and just kind of explore this, how does, in our case, how might this knowledge affect people's lives, or, and so that was an interesting take, and particularly that, and I think you brought this up earlier, just in the, acting industry, in the theater industry, you are already thinking of language and personas and whatnot, and interacting with that side of humanities that has spent a long time thinking about how those go together. It was just fun. I found it much more enjoyable, the process, than other types of outreach that I've done in the past.
Great. Oh, I'm glad to hear you had a pleasant process too. Claire, I'll toss it to you if you have anything to add. How did you find yourself talking about your work, knowing that you were talking to someone who is an artist who is going to make something of that, be inspired by that, and how has that maybe shifted the way you think about communicating about it now?
Sure. I'll admit at first, in the beginning, the first 5 minutes maybe of our Zoom meeting when Nathan and I first met, I was speaking kind of as casually and layperson directed as possible about my work, but it quickly became evident that Nathan was interested in deeper details, and I actually ended up walking him through my whole slide deck of presenting the science. And he used that going forward too. So I underestimated really what an artist or person outside of science really could understand. And I mean, that was really confirmed in just how true to the science Nathan stayed in, transforming it to a very symbolic and metaphoric level. But really, I saw so many concepts of my work in admonitions. It was incredible. I similarly had the experience of feeling a tension about relinquishing control of the narrative a bit. But that was a very interesting experience, and I couldn't have had a better time.
Thank you. I'm going to just do one last scoop here to the comments to see if Lori wants to put forth any others. No? All right. Then we're going to execute our planned last comment here, which would maybe a variation a little bit on the theme of that question that we just got answered. I'd love to hear from each of you, maybe starting with Claire and Nathan, and then hearing from Andrew and Deb, and ending with Alex, and leaving Ken in the last to comment. What's something that you learned in this process? It could be about science, it could be about theater, it could be about life, it could be small or big, just one thing that you learned from the process. So, Claire, looks like you unmuted. All right.
Yes, I'm happy to start. I really learned how analytically rich this performance or translation of science to performance was. I found myself reflecting on aspects of my research in a new way because of the way that it was represented and embodied. So I think it's a useful tool for analysis as well as knowledge dissemination.
Great. Nathan.
One of the things I think I actually told Claire this while we had our meeting. It just, I guess, in a way, there's a blind spot for me that was sort of enlightening to recognize, which was whenever I've interacted with a doctor or a nurse, my question in my head has always been like, can I trust the doctor, right? And never asked myself, do they trust me? Like, it never occurred to me to ask that question. And I feel like I got some interesting tips about how to like make a doctor trust you. Like, just telling them the truth about like, if you're not taking your medicine, or if you know what I mean? Like, there was an anecdote that she shared as part of her research about like how, when a doctor was told by the patient that they weren't taking their supplements, that doctor felt a lot better about their relationship, you know what I mean? And so I think those, the potential for just like starting off on the right foot with the relationship and medicine can be like a good thing. And it's not something I set out to learn per se, but it's just one of those things that stuck with me from our conversation.
Great, thank you. Andrew?
Sure. I think I learned maybe a new approach to zooming out about the big picture of my research and the points that may be most salient to come across when trying to disseminate ideas of my research to a larger audience. And I think the process kind of forced me to rather than, you know, the details of the algorithm that we're working on or this exact analysis, to think of the big picture from a new perspective.
Great. Deb?
Yeah, I found that the research itself was really fascinating. I love the fact that the words we use are actually very telling. The actual words that we use, not just what we're trying to communicate, and that they can predict things like flu epidemics before the CDC can predict them, just by a population, the words a population is using, or they can predict emotional stability, or they can predict age and gender. All of that. I just really
Essentially,
I find
they do
that fascinating.
that. Essentially.
So
Great callback.
Right. It's words that you don't even expect. I mean, the fact like the Lakers was actually a term that indicates that people are healthy and happy. and also that communities where people are angry, there is a higher rate of heart disease, which means we really all affect each other. We're not living in our own little bubbles, even though right now we're in our own little bubbles. We really do affect the people around us.
Alex.
Yeah, so for me, the interesting experience was that I was telling Ken stories, and those stories were sort of random stories from different parts of my life. And I was very impressed by his creativity to have a narrative. Because if you think about everything he put together, you know, from nanotech to Chernobyl to commercialization, it seemed almost impossible task. And to put it coherently and have some flow, that for me at the beginning I thought it's going to be impossible. I thought he will select a particular part of my life or the narrative and will follow it, but he somehow was able to package it all together in a very creative way. And so for me, that was impressive. I did not expect it. And, you know, I'm still impressed by his work and how actors interacted and delivered the content.
Thank you. And it's to you, Ken.
Yeah, Alex, it was both hard and easy. I mean, you gave me so much material, which was such a luxury, and I was happy to steal as much of it as I could, but trying to winnow down. And that's I want to comment on two things. One, you're talking about narrative, and we talk a lot about that in developing materials at the Alda Center, and that narrative gives a kind of cause and effect that allows the material to stick in kind of a different way. So that's certainly something we're diving into right now and working on in terms of workshops and things like that. And then I say this somewhat glibly, but my takeaway is that if I had more money, I'd give it to Alex. I mean, the research that he's doing and how far-reaching it is and the possibilities for it were so exciting. So I'm glad to hear of the recent award and glad to hear it, because I was frankly outraged. I mean, part of the play was kind of a revenge fantasy on your behalf because I wanted you to have this this funding so badly. And then I'll just wrap up just to talk to everybody and tell people who are watching that the panel discussion will be available on the Alda Center website. So that's going to remain available should you want to reference it or have somebody watch it who didn't get to watch it. The scripts of the plays will stay up there for a while, and the recording of the performances will be up there for a limited time, for 2 weeks' time. So that's there, again, for repeat viewing, or if there are others that you want to point towards it, if you think it would be good for someone else to view or use in some way. And I'm just really grateful to our partner researchers for how generous you are with your time. And thank you, Ebath, and thank you to our playwrights, Deb and Nathan, as well.
Thank you, everyone, and thank you to those who were listening along and commenting. It was great to be able to discuss these plays and this collaboration with everyone.
Thank you.